शांतिरंतरिक्षगम शांतिर्द्यौ शांतिर दिशा शांतिरवांतर दिशा शांतिरग्नि शांतिर वायु शांतिरादित्य शांति चंद्रमा शांतिर नक्षत्राणि शांतिराप शांतिरोषधय शांतिर वनस्पतय शांतिर गौ शांतिरजा शांतिरश्व शांति पुरुष शांतिर ब्रह्म शांतिर्ब्राह्मण शांति शांतिरेव शांति शांतिर्मे अस्तु शांतिः. May there be peace on earth and in the sky. May there be peace in the water and in all directions. May there be peace in the plants, in the trees and in animals. May there be peace in the hearts of all beings. May there be peace in everyone and in everything. Sarvetra sukhinas santu, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukkha bhag bhavet, sarvastaratu durgani, sarvo bhadrani pashyatu, sarvas sadbuddhimapnotu, sarvas sarvatra nandatu. May all be happy and healthy. May all see what is good, and may no one experience misery. May all overcome their obstacles and acquire good tendencies. May people everywhere find joy and fulfillment. Let us now spend some time touching the center of peace and joy in our hearts. A good way to begin the practice is to withdraw the scattered energies of the mind and bring them to rest on one point. That point can be our own breathing. Let us therefore practice breathing with awareness. As we breathe in, let us visualize that our body and mind are being filled with love, strength, and compassion. And as we breathe out, let us release all the stress, anxiety, and exhaustion in the body and mind. Let us practice this way for a while. Let us now turn our attention to the region of our heart. Although God is present everywhere and in everyone, the divine presence can be felt most clearly in our hearts. We can meditate in any way we have been taught. To remain focused, we can take the help of a short mental prayer or a mantra or a divine name. Let us now spend some time dwelling on the presence of God in our hearts. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om.
We will sing Prakritim Paramam on page 29 and page 30 of your books.
Rupa
Om Asatoma Satkamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Aviravirmayeti Rudrayate Dakshinam Mukham Tenamam Pahi Nityam. May the Divine lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May the Divine Consciousness fill our hearts and protect us. So today is, of course, Mother's Day. And so it's appropriate to begin the service by bowing down in gratitude to all the mothers of the past, the present, and the future. Someone sent me this morning a small picture of the letters mom when they flipped downward, it becomes wow. And that's so true. When we think about our own mothers and see how much of love, sacrifice, and I mean it's just inexplicable. No words are enough to even express the role mothers play in our lives. And so it's very good that we have this Mother's Day, but also to recognize that the Mother's Day shouldn't be reduced to just one day in a year we remember the mothers. Really, there's every reason to be grateful for mothers every day of our lives. We see a special veneration for mothers in the lives of all the great spiritual enlightened beings, in the lives of all incarnations and prophets, saints. See in the life of Buddha, Jesus, Shankara, Chaitanya, and in our own times, Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, and Swamiji. Swami Vivekananda in one place said that among the monastics, he said, we have not always been very deferential to the wishes of our fathers, but without exception, all of us, there's a special place for mothers, even in the monastic order that the Vivekananda inaugurated. Vedanta asks us to look at each and everything more deeply and more carefully. And when we do so, we see that motherhood is not as intrinsically connected with gender as we might think. Biologically, yes. Biologically, only women can be mothers. But as human beings, we are not simply biological creatures. The qualities associated with motherhood belong to the mind. And it is possible to cultivate those qualities in any mind. In fact, we see that motherly qualities are in people irrespective of their gender. Swami Tyagananda, a great disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, once said that in the early days when we went to Dakshineshwar, he was speaking for himself and also on behalf of some of his other brother disciples. He said, we always thought we are going to our mother. Yes, of course, they were going to see their spiritual teacher, a great saint. But he said the predominant thought was that we are going to our mother. So clearly, when you look at Sri Ramakrishna, a bearded saint, there's no way you could, in a conventional way, think of Ramakrishna as a mother. But that's exactly how most of his disciples saw him. And we can see that we look upon not only our mother as mother, but there are other mentors and teachers in our lives who we look upon as our own mother. Oftentimes our spiritual teacher, our guru, becomes like our mother. So motherhood, understood in that sense, is a much broader category than the person who gave us birth. Each of us needs to become a mother in a different sense as well. The noble ideals, the values that we cherish as little children, we know that they often get lost or diluted or forgotten in the compromised world that we grow up in as adults. So each of us needs to be a mother to our own values, to our own ideals, so that these ideals and values in our own hearts can have a healthy growth and not come to any harm in our lives. And in spiritual seekers, of course, we have to be a mother to our own spiritual life. Our spiritual life is a little bit like a baby. If we don't take care of that baby within our hearts, it might not grow well. Its growth might be stunted. So our own spiritual life is our little baby, and we have to be a mother to our own spiritual life as well. So every one of us has a chance to be a good mother, both to a lot of things outside of us and a lot of things inside of us. Motherhood is associated with love. The highest expression of unselfish love that we know of in this world often comes from the mother. Some years ago, and of course there are many such stories, but some years ago in an Indian newspaper, a story came about how in one village a tiger had attacked a calf. And a cow, the mother, was nearby. She attacked the tiger and drove him away. Now, I'm sure if the calf hadn't been there, the tiger would have just finished off that cow. But just because she was protecting her baby, the strength, the courage, this enormous potential was unleashed that even a tiger was frightened away. That's the power of motherhood. And that's the power within the hearts of all of us, which we need to harness, which we need to unleash in a very constructive way. And of course, as most of us can testify, being a mother is not easy. Motherhood has its challenges. And the greatest challenge, I think, since love is such a defining characteristic of motherhood, a great challenge for mothers is to distinguish between love and attachment. Oftentimes externally the two look same, and I think our inability to distinguish between attachment and love creates a lot of difficulties. We see that love, understood in its true form, can only produce joy, freedom, contentment. And it's attachment that produces pain, fear, suspicion, anger, all kinds of negative things. And so we find that the relationships that we have in life produce both. There is a lot of joy, there is a lot of freedom, there is a lot of understanding, but alongside that, there is also oftentimes misunderstanding. There is oftentimes anger, frustration. And so what those who have looked at this phenomenon deeply and closely have found is that most of our relationships are a mixture of love and attachment. The joy and freedom that we experience in a relationship is because of the love. And the pain and suffering that comes in a relationship is not because of love, but it's because of attachment. So if we can eliminate attachment from all the relationships and only love remains, then that relationship can produce the greatest good for everyone, can bring so much joy, so much freedom, so much growth, so much evolution. And so the ability to distinguish between love and attachment is very important, and especially so for spiritual seekers. So what I would like to do in the next few minutes is take a look at two of the mothers from history, which might help us see the difference between love and attachment. It might also help us see how oftentimes unconsciously we might hurt instead of help. I have spoken on a similar subject some years ago, so it may not be completely unfamiliar to some of you, but it's nevertheless important to go over these things, even if we have known them before, because it's so easy to forget and so difficult to remember. So these two mothers that I would like to reflect on in the next few minutes come from the two ancient epics, Indian epics, the Mahabharata and the Ramayana. So let me begin with the Mahabharata. I'm kind of assuming many of you are familiar with it. Even if you're not familiar with it, I'll try to give as much background as possible. If you want to get more familiar with it, there are some good Mahabharata, Ramayana books are there in the bookstore. You can pick them up. Fascinating stories. A lot of people come to know about spiritual life and about just life by reading these epics. Not so much from reading the Gita and the Upanishad. Sure, we do study them here at the Vedanta Society, but majority of the people have been able to learn about life and about spirituality more from these ancient texts, which are able to encapsulate these abstract philosophical principles of the Gita and the Upanishad through the lives of these immortal characters, historical as well as fictional. But we can learn so much from history and mythology. So Gandhari is the mother of the Kauravas. She comes from the area which in today's geographical term is Afghanistan. She was a very brave princess, and she was married to this man called Dhritarashtra, who appears right in the beginning of the Gita. He was the blind king of the Kauravas to whom the Gita was narrated. So she was married to Dhritarashtra, who was blind. As you can imagine, it wasn't an easy decision. Obviously, there was some kind of an arm twisting in the background to have this beautiful young princess to marry a blind prince. But she agreed to do it, and she took a very brave decision. She said, if my husband cannot see, I voluntarily will not see at all. And so she's a little bit unusual character in the story, which we find her completely blindfolded. So and those of you who have seen a TV version of the story might remember Gandhari as one queen who was blindfolded. She is very chaste, very independent, very brave, and very ethical. She was probably from the Kaurava side, she was the most sensible person. She was fully aware of the weaknesses of her children. She often scolded her eldest son Duryodhana, telling him, giving him counsel, scolding him. But as mothers, we know when there is only so much you can do until the children are small. When they grow up, the best you can do is tell them what to do, and then they decide. And so she scolded Duryodhana, and Duryodhana, of course, didn't care. So she was, in fact, the head of a very blind family. Her husband was blind, literally. She had blinded herself. Her eldest son, Duryodhana, was blinded by both ambition and jealousy. He was ambitious to become the king. He was jealous of his Pandava cousins. His brothers were blinded by their unquestioned obedience to this ruthless elder brother. So it's a family of blind people. And then, of course, the war began. Gandhari knew Krishna was on the other side. Her children are going to lose. So the result of the war was not in doubt. And there was little that she could do. So she grieved very much internally. But outwardly, she tried to remain calm and composed. But that calmness, that composure was disturbed when one by one the reports started coming from the battlefield of these great Kaurava warriors dying. Bhishma, Drona, Karna, some of these great stalwart, the commanders-in-chief of the army, when they fell down, Gandhari, her calm was disturbed. And she said, now my own son is in danger. I know my children are in the wrong. I know that he is ruthless. I know he is not right. But what is my duty as a mother? Isn't my duty as a mother to protect my son? After all, he's my son. I must do everything to protect him. And so then she takes a brave decision. She sends word to Duryodhana and says, tonight you must come to my tent and come bare-bodied. So she decided that she is going to remove that blindfold. Because she was such a pure and a great yogi, she had enormous power. And so she decided that I'm going to remove the blindfold and look at my son and make his body as strong, so strong that no arrow can pierce through it. Nothing. He will be invincible. And so she sent that word to Duryodhana, come tonight completely bare-bodied to my tent. And Duryodhana was so happy. He said, now, until that time, he had received only scoldings from his mom. But now he said, finally my mother loves me. She is going to now make me so strong, none of these people can kill me. And so he was very thrilled. When the news spread to the Pandava camp, they had their spies also. And they were panicky. They knew the power of Gandhari. And they said, the victory, which is so much near us, now suddenly seems miles away. And of course, we can see that in the Mahabharata. Every time the Pandavas are in trouble, they just go running to Krishna. And so they go to Krishna and they say, what do we do now? Because Gandhari has decided to remove the veil over her eyes. And now Duryodhana is going to be invincible. And Krishna, calm as always, calm, detached. You find that picture of Krishna always smiling, never anxious, never disturbed. So he just laughs and he says, you saying she's decided to remove her veil? I think she's now putting on a much bigger veil, the veil of attachment. And so he said, don't worry, it's all going to be fine. And Pandavas knew that Krishna is going to do something to make it fine. And he did. So Duryodhana that night, according to the instructions of his mother, was in his birthday suit, just going towards a tent. And Krishna stops him on the way. And then, of course, when Krishna, he thought no one would be there at that time of the night to see. And of course, Duryodhana feels very embarrassed. He tries to hide himself. And Krishna says, "Are you an idiot? Is this the way to go to your mother? Go and meet your mother?" And then Duryodhana said, "But that's what she said. She wanted me this way." He said, "Come on, use a common sense. You're not a little baby anymore. You're a grown adult. Even if you're going to meet your own mother, you never go like this. Cover yourself. You don't have any cloth, at least take one banana leaf or something and cover yourself." And then, he was just voicing the doubts that Duryodhana had. Duryodhana himself was feeling obviously a bit odd going that way, so he immediately obeyed. There was a banana leaf, he covered himself, and then he went to his mother's tent. The mother opened her blindfold and she looked at her son. Now that was the first time she was even seeing her son. She had never seen any of her children because she was blindfolded. And she looked lovingly at her eldest son, her heart filled with so much love and affection. But the power, her yogic power, made his body so strong, except the part covered by the banana leaf. You can imagine the tremendous yogic power that she had could make him strong, but could not penetrate this little flimsy little leaf. That's the kind of weakness attachment can bring. So she wanted to make her son free from any danger. And now she had actually told the Pandavas how to kill him. Krishna told the Pandavas, "I had worried myself sick about how to kill this," because Duryodhana was a very brave soldier, very strong. He wasn't weak. It wasn't easy to defeat him. And Krishna said, "I've been wondering, you guys would never have been able to beat him. But now we know exactly what to do." So then he tells Bhima, "Go and take that mace, that gada, and then hit him at that spot covered by this, below his waist, which was covered by the banana leaf. That's his weak point." And that's exactly what they do, and Duryodhana was finished. So you can see the mother, she wanted to help her son, but what covered it was the attachment. So rather than help him, she in fact hurt him. Rather than try to save his life, she in fact showed the enemies how he could be destroyed. We see a similar pattern in another mother's life, but also a way to redemption, how we can get out of it. And that we see in the life of Kaikeyi. So when you look at Gandhari, and we can see what a wonderful character she was. She was so strong, so brave, so sensible, so down to earth. But even such a person could be blinded by attachment. And if that thing can happen to such an exalted character like hers, the rest of us have to be even more vigilant of how often attachments can blind us in our own lives. And even when we want to help someone, we might be unconsciously hurting them. That's what attachments do. So let's look at this Kaikeyi, another great person from the other epic Ramayana. Kaikeyi, so Dashratha, the father of Rama, had 3 queens, Kausalya, Sumitra, and Kaikeyi. Kaikeyi was the youngest, beautiful, intelligent, brave. Among all of these 3 queens, this youngest queen, Kaikeyi, was the only one who accompanied her husband on battlefield. Very brave. On one occasion, she had in fact saved his life. He was so pleased that he immediately granted her 2 boons and said, "Ask me any 2 things you want." And then she said, "I don't want anything." And then he himself said, "Okay, if you don't want anything now, you can ask them later. But I'm so pleased with your devotion. Now please give me a little break." In some of our scriptures, water is described as a mother. So I'm holding it up. Kaikeyi, her son's name was Bharata, was the youngest of the four brothers. The eldest son was Rama, who was the son of Kausalya, the oldest queen. Kaikeyi, she loved her son, of course, but she loved Rama even more. Everyone loved Rama. Of course, Rama is the avatar, the incarnation. No wonder that everyone loved him. He was an ideal human being. In fact, Kaikeyi loved Rama so much that she had often said, I wish Rama had been my son. Or if he couldn't be son in this life, I hope he becomes my son in the next life. That was how much she loved him. When Dasharatha fell in love with Kaikeyi before he married her and went to her parents seeking her hand, her parents actually refused, because they said, well, she's going to be the youngest queen, and according to the tradition of those days, only the eldest son of the oldest queen will be the successor, will be the heir to the throne. And so they said, what's the point? My daughter is never going to be the chief queen. She'll be the youngest. And so they agreed to the marriage only on the condition that Kaikeyi's son will be made king. So that was a special privilege given. Kaikeyi loved Rama so much that she forego that privilege. She fought with her parents and said, nothing doing. Rama is the right person to be the king. So up to this point, everything was just fine. Dasharatha, the king, falls ill. He decides, it's time for me now to hand over the kingdom. And of course, everyone wanted Rama to be the king. He's the eldest son. There was no problem. He decided a day of coronation. Because at that point, the trouble started. There was this maid of this Kaikeyi named Mantra. If you like, you can call her the snake in the kingdom of Ayodhya. So she goes and poisons the mind of Kaikeyi and says, do you know what you're doing? Your son should be the king. Once Rama becomes the king, his mom will be the chief queen, and you will be nowhere. You will be completely sidelined. You should be the chief queen. And everyone loves you, and the king loves you, and your son should be the king. So that's how the love that Kaikeyi had for her son and for Rama and all the children was covered by the blind of attachment for her son. And then she said, oh yeah, you're right. I think my son should be the king. And that's how then she goes to the king and then says, remember years ago you had given me those 2 boons? I want to now claim them. And so then she asks for the first boon, my son should be the king, and Rama, in case he should cause any trouble, it's better that he goes far away as possible, should be sent for 14 years to the forest. Now, why she did this? Out of love. Of course, love for herself, that she wanted to be the queen, but also love for her son, that she wanted her son to be the king. Now, what was the result? Of course, as we can imagine, and those of you who have read the story, it's not a big suspense, you know what happened. The whole scenario changed. The king completely fell ill, and he was so shocked by this demand that he immediately disowned her. And in a very few days, the king died. She became a widow. Her son, Bharata, whom she wanted to be the king, came and completely denounced her. He said, Mom, what are you doing? This is totally unacceptable. The son disowned her and said, I'm never in my life going to call you a mother again. So she lost her son. The people of that kingdom, everyone loved her. She was so good. She was so brave. Everyone loved her. But after this one demand that she made, everyone denounced her. So overnight, she became a villain. And in history, if she hadn't done this, we would have today remembered her as one of the very brave queens of Dasharatha. But the first thing that comes to mind today when we think about Kaikeyi is that this is that stepmother who sent her son to the forest. So the whole thing got changed by this one veil of attachment that came over her. Now, how did Rama react to all of this? So we read in the Ramayana, Rama goes to her and bows down at her feet and says, "Mother, you are so kind." And Kaikeyi, she's now blinded. She even doesn't recognize Rama addressed her as mother, and he always addressed all of them as mother. But she thinks now, oh, he now kind of wants to extract some concession from me by calling me a mother, but I'm going to keep myself strong. So she completely disregards it. But why was Rama calling her a mother? The reason was this. For long, Rama wanted to go and spend time in the forest, but he knew as a prince, the princely duties and responsibilities wouldn't allow him that luxury of going and staying in a forest and spending time with the hermits and sages there. Now, who is a mother? A mother is one who understands exactly what a baby wants. And we know that. When very little, we don't have any language skills. Most people, if the baby is crying, they just say, call the mother. Because others don't know what the baby wants. But mother knows exactly what the baby wants. And so what Rama is saying here is that this inner desire of my heart, that I wanted to go and spend time in the forest, even my own mother, Kausalya, didn't realize it. Sumitra, they were actually celebrating that I was going to be the king. But you understood what I wanted to do, and you devised this scheme to then send me to the forest so that my own heart's desire will be fulfilled. The second reason Rama was very happy was that he always felt that everything is fine with our kingdom and with our tradition, except this kind of an illogical, a random tradition that the eldest child should be the king. And he felt that if anything, it's the youngest one who should be the king. After all, it's an age-old law that the older ones sacrifice for the younger ones. And so it was his wish that Bharata should be the king. But again, he knew that that was not the tradition of his day. And now his mother, Kaikeyi, had understood exactly what his heart's desire was. So there was a special significance, special reason of why he addressed her as mother. In fact, we see that even when he returned from the 14 years of exile in the forest, the first person Rama goes to is not Kausalya, not his biological mother, but to Kaikeyi, and falls at her feet. Even by that time, of course, she has understood her folly. She has understood that I made the biggest blunder of my life. And she seeks forgiveness from Rama. And he refuses to acknowledge that she has even done anything wrong. By addressing her as mother, Rama is in fact telling Kaikeyi that you said that I will take another birth to become your son, that I should be a son in your next life. And he says, you don't have to take another birth. I'm your son in this life itself. I mean, look at Bharata, who was the biological son of Kaikeyi. His treatment of his mother does seem a bit harsh. Sure, mother did something absolutely stupid, that's true. But that he and if you read in the Ramayana story, he was pretty strong on her. He denounces her in very, very strong language. So it does seem a bit harsh. But if you look at the deeper personality of Bharata, what he did was exactly what a physician would do. So if there is an infected part, then if it can't be cured, oftentimes a surgeon would have to amputate that part to save the rest of the body. And so he found that the great qualities that his mother had, the wonderful woman that she really was. So Kaikeyi is not like a complete villain. Sure, attachment did blind her, but she was a very good person. So what Bharata saw, that her goodness, her strengths were being eclipsed by this attachment to him. So if he can help his mother in removing that attachment, her own innate strength and qualities will manifest once again. So he tried to break off his attachment to her as his mother, so she could break off her attachment to him as his son. He stopped calling her as his mother so that she would start seeing Rama as a true son. So Bharata's is no less a sacrifice done in order to help his mother. There are a lot of aspects to these stories that we can reflect on, but I would leave that to you as and when you read these stories, and to see, and not just these, I've just taken just 2 sample characters, but we can learn so much from both fiction and non-fiction. History as epics, mythology, take it from anywhere. It doesn't really matter whether it really happened, whether it happened yesterday or it happened 1,000 years ago. Human nature itself doesn't change. The specifics might change from one generation to the next, from one culture to a different culture. But the basics, the fundamentals, the attachment in the human heart, the love, the affection, the understanding, these have been there for centuries, for thousands of years. They are there even now. So there is a lot we can learn from these personalities, and not just ancient personalities. We can look at the people around us, from our own contemporaries, from our own members of our family, our friends, members of the community. We can look at them and learn both ways. There are, just like each of us, we have our strengths, we have our weaknesses. People are people, and people have their weaknesses, people have their strengths. We can look at everyone, learn from their weaknesses, and see that whether those reflect weaknesses are present in our own heart. And if we find them, rather than condemn others, rather than criticize others, rather than blame others, we can see that if those weaknesses are in our own heart, we can try to remove them. And learn from the mistakes that others have made to make sure that we don't make the same mistakes. But also, look at the strengths that other people have, the good points that they have, and then we can see, if I don't have those strengths within me, what can I do to emulate that example? So we can learn from both the strengths as well as the weaknesses of people around us. So although this reflection occurred in the context of the Mother's Day, as I said, there is a mother in the heart of all of us. There is love in the heart of all of us. There is attachment in the heart of all of us. So all that we need to do is to look carefully, deeply within our own hearts, try to eliminate these attachments and help the love within our heart to grow. The more the love grows in our heart, the better mothers we all can become. And the better mothers we become, there'll be more love in our heart, more love in our family, more love in our community, more love in the world around. Love is what unites us. Anything other than love is what divides us. So that's one of the important things we can reflect on Mother's Day. That what is it that will bring us together? Just as a mother becomes a focal point where the whole family can come together, it's love that does it. And therefore, looking upon the ideal of motherhood as the ideal of love, we can learn from it. One of the things that was said about Sri Ramakrishna was that he brought Sharada Devi along with her to demonstrate to us in contemporary times, in our own times, what does motherhood of God means? What does being a mother means? How someone can be a mother as a divine being and a mother as a human being rolled into one. So, even if you have studied the life of Holy Mother Sharada Devi years ago or even few days ago, I would encourage you to reread it again, because the more we read her life, read her words, it shows us the things that we lack, the things that we already have, the things that we need to do. it makes us better human beings. And that's what we'll hope to do. Om Jananim Saradam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Padapadme Tayo Shritva Pranamami Muhur Muhu. We bow down to Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother again and again. Next Sunday, we'll have a guest speaker. Professor Jeffrey Long of the Elizabethtown College, Pennsylvania, will be with us, and he will speak on Our Mother Who Art in Heaven. So the theme of motherhood will continue next Sunday. Also because next Sunday is, according to the Indian lunar calendar, is a day of what they call the Falaharini Kali Puja, or the Shodashi Puja. It was on that day that Sri Ramakrishna had worshipped Holy Mother as an embodiment of the divine. So it's a sacred day. In many places in India they have special worship, and so this is a very appropriate topic for that day. Our Mother Who Art in Heaven by Professor Jeffrey Long. That will be next Sunday. On Tuesday and Saturday we'll continue with our Arati and meditation as usual. On Wednesday we will have we'll resume our study of the Gita. We are on chapter 9 at present, and so that we will be on Wednesday at 7:30. One other announcement. You might remember a few months ago we had a workshop on worship, and many of you came and told me later on how you are trying to do some small worship at home every day. And although, as I said, that you could have, there's no need of a special equipment, a puja kit if you like. You could just have a glass, a cup and a plate. If you would like to have a more traditional setup, I'm very happy to tell you that we have recently acquired 10 traditional puja kits with a copper or brass glass and a spoon, which is used for worship. So in case you do worship at home and would like to have it, you can pick it up from the bookstore. The winter is gone, thank God, at least for the next 7 or 8 months. And so it's getting warm, and I think today probably going to go to the 80s in the afternoon probably. So, but I have one request for you. While it would be very tempting to come in shorts for satsang, I would ask you to please avoid doing that. If you intend going to a beach after the satsang, keep your beach wear in the car and you can change it later on. But it will be good if we maintain the dress code for satsang as we normally do. That will be very helpful. So let's conclude with a prayer on page 3 of your books. May the Divine Being, who is the Father in heaven of the Christians, Holy One of the Jewish faith, Allah of the Muslims, Buddha of the Buddhists, Tao of the Taoists, Ahura Mazda of the Zoroastrians, the Great Spirit of the Native Americans, and Brahman of the Hindus, lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May we be granted strength, freedom, and clear understanding. May we learn to see God in our own hearts and in everyone around us. May God bless us all and fill our hearts with gratitude, grace and love. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.